Well, here we are at the final lecture for this course, and what I'd like to do at this time is offer a brief review of what we learned in the entire 7-week lecture series. So first of all, qualitative research is a method of inquiry that tends to be inductive rather than deductive, so our insights tend to come from the data rather than from a pre-existing theory. Tends to be based on observation rather than on statistics or experimental design. Tends to be focused on depth of understanding rather than generalization. It tends to be comprised of varied, customizable methods rather than more rigid approaches. It tends to be based on a more post-positivist approach, which is where truth is governed by the observer, rather than a more classical empirical positivist one, where truth is inherent in the observation. And it's less rigorous than a lot of methods of quant, but it's also more likely to provide a groundswell of insight if it's analyzed properly. Next, qualitative research is a light in the darkness, helping us to make sense of the shapes and shadows off in the distance. And when it's used improperly, it can lead us to false conclusions. But used well, it can help us to see things that weren't immediately obvious before and help us to understand the world around us differently. The third thing is that we have 4 basic applications that often depend upon our familiarity with the topic as researchers and the participants' familiarity with the topics. If there's high familiarity on both sides, we're going to start with a deep dive where we're going to try to explore that. If the participant knows more than we do, we might go more into exploration where we're getting them to open up and tell us things. If we know more than the participant, we might go to testing where we're trying to get them to help us to understand what really works. And then if both we and the participant don't know a lot about a topic, we might start with idea generation where we're really trying to figure out which direction we should head into. The fourth thing is that qualitative research has 4 basic methods of primary data collection. First of those that we talked about was observational research, and that can come in disguised or undisguised variants, on-site or off-site, and it can be active where we ask questions, or it can be passive where we don't. Next, we have in-depth interviews, which can come in forms like structured, semi-structured, unstructured, or informal. We can also have focus groups that come in traditional or telephone or online camera, webcam kind of approach, or online message board approach even. And we can even do those in a facility or on-site if we're doing them in person. And in a facility means in a professional research facility, whereas on-site might mean that we're setting up the site where we want people to come to. And then we have ethnographic research, which is kind of a combination of those prior 3 techniques. And it tends to have methods that vary widely. There's not really one accepted way to do ethnography, but there are lots of different ways that it's done. And it's often accompanied by some form of videography. And again, ethnography tends to produce the best and highest quality of data, but it's also expensive, it's hard to analyze, and it's very time consuming. So that's why we usually don't use it for anything more than maybe some exploration or idea generation. Next is that qualitative data analysis involves organizing data into a readable body of work from which you can obtain insights. We want to become familiar with data that helps to discover initial insights. Then we want to use methods like grounded theory to apply rigor to additional insight generation. We want to use text-based analysis to help uncover patterns and trends, and then maybe systems like coding and categorization to help find the structure within the data. We might also use software like CACDAS software that can sometimes help us uncover additional insights if used properly, though, as we talked about, a lot of researchers use fairly rudimentary software tools because CACDAS software really is not there yet in terms of helping to automate those processes. Qualitative reporting is about presenting data as much as it's about data-driven storytelling. Story is what audiences remember best, and it helps them to connect to the abstract nature of the research. Context, where we talk about where the research came from or what was going on around the research, is a useful tool, provided that the research that goes with it is not overshadowed. Personas can be identified, and stories about them can be shared to differentiate segments or attitudes, but be careful to use quotes illustratively to represent themes, not to cherry-pick interesting outliers. If it's not supporting what your main findings of your data are, it's probably not worth sharing. Finally, the future of qualitative research is probably going to be rooted in traditional methods augmented with technological applications. Webcams and mobile phones are likely to shape the immediate future. Faster, cheaper, and better analytics are further off, but they're highly desired. Automation has some potential, but probably more as a tool for screening than for administering research. Exotic methods are intriguing, but all too often fail to make a big impression on the research community. And hybrid research, complementary methods, or tandem studies that marry qual and quant are the coming convergence all researchers should be ready for. If you are specializing in one discipline or the other, I got news for you. You're probably going to need to be familiar with both because that's where things are heading. All right. I'd like to conclude with an image. And I want to bring us back for a moment to the analogy from week 2 that qualitative research is like a light in the darkness helping us to see. And in this image, we can see an image that a photographer has captured, presumably from a spinning firework nailed to a fence that's shooting out sparks in all directions. This isn't something that was captured in a single nanosecond. The photographer had to leave the camera open for a longer exposure, and the light that we're seeing is a composite of moments combining to provide us with a beautiful shower of sparks and an ability to see not only where the sparks shot up on their own, but also where multiple sparks converged to create brighter lights and better defined shapes and arcs. And I really like this image because it suggests to me the powerful impact that data can have to help us to see something that our own eyes can't spot on their own, but which can be identified when we take the time to consider many moments and points of view together. Qualitative research truly can be a light that helps us to see so many wonderful things about the world around us, and I hope that in the course of learning about it for this class, you have enjoyed seeing those things come to light yourself. Well, I want to close by saying I've really enjoyed taking this journey with you, and I encourage you to keep in touch with me at my email address below and let me know how you're utilizing qualitative research in your own career. Thank you, and my sincere best wishes to you. This is Sean Jordan, professional marketing researcher and instructor for this class, signing off.